So she has a really good segment in there talking about the brakes and the gas or the accelerator when it comes to sexuality. And for some women, dare I say a lot of them, if not all of them, no, most of them, to be fair, have a lot of brakes. If this happens, no, it's not happening. If this is going on in my life, no, sex is not happening. There's a lot of brakes. Men don't seem to have as many brakes. So when you combine dude who's ready to go if the wind is blowing just right versus woman who has a lot of brakes and a lot of things have to be working in concert and the planets have to be aligned just right. Again, when in long-term monogamy, it's tough to keep that engine going. You got to constantly feed. I'm picturing like the big engines like in the Titanic, those little steam liners, shoveling coal into constantly shoveling coal. And when you stop, the whole thing just stops.
This guy helped inspire my change. What is that, like 6 years ago I started this thing, maybe 5 years ago. And it's all because I picked up one of his books because I was experiencing some things in my own life that resonated with that book. And I'd like to take the opportunity now to introduce Ralph from Help for Men, otherwise known as the DSO, Dad Starting Over. And he wrote a landmark book called The Dead Bedroom Fix.
You're an adult, as I say in the book. You see a bed that needs to get made, you just make it real quick. It's not that difficult. You got laundry, it's in the hamper, throw it in the washing machine. It ain't that difficult. Toilet looks nasty, scrub it. Who cares? These are things that take like minutes out of your life. It's not a big deal. But do not go to wife then and say, laundry, how you wanna? Biggest turnoff there is. Because you're going to, like you said in the book, you're going to mommy for your reward. Look what I did, mommy. Aren't I a good boy? And anytime you have that dynamic of you being the underling, if you will, the subservient one, going to the boss or mommy figure and saying, look what I did, it's not conducive to generating a sexual atmosphere between them. It's our natural proclivity to just drift apart. Now, what we do once we drift apart, whether it's sleep in separate bedrooms, whether it's just goodnight, honey, and that's the only interaction we have, or have affairs or whatever it may be, it just seems our natural inclination is just to slowly but surely go apart. And it takes work to pull you back together. Gotta have date nights. Somebody's gotta watch the kiddo. Aunt so-and-so's gotta watch the kid. We gotta go away for the weekend together. We have to do lunches frequently, keep in contact with each other on a regular basis. Take care of each other independently. Wife, I got the kid. Get out there. Go. Go to your gym, go to your yoga, go do your girl thing, whatever it may be. Same thing for me. I'll go do my gym thing, hang out with my boys, whatever it may be. But that's tough. So we got the independence, yet we got to stay connected. We got to stay sexy with each other as much as humanly possible because Father Time, doesn't like us to stay sexy for very long. It's telling us to turn down the old sex machine. That's what menopause is all about. It's like, part of your life's over, sister. No, it takes work to keep that going. No wonder it falls apart for so many people.
Ralph, one of the things I'm hearing is that, obviously obstacles happen in relationships. When obstacles begin to happen, an obstacle doesn't have to be like something went wrong, but they could be life's natural challenges that come along.
Talk about how scarcity in a long-term, scarcity of yourself, right? Not being available all the time in a long-term monogamous relationship. How does that play into all of this, right?
Well, I think it's
huge.
Yeah, what we talked about earlier with the independence thing, it's not necessarily so much of a calculated, manipulative, I'm not going to answer her text messages, I'm going to be invisible, she's going to be worried about me whether I'm alive or not. That's where men take it too far. I've had guys that read my material and then say, so the other day I left, my wife said, where are you going? And all I said was out. And then I didn't reply to her for the next 8 hours and she threw a big hissy fit. What did I do wrong? No one ever said, disappear and you're a father, you're a husband, you don't just take off, for goodness sakes. I'm saying you don't necessarily need to be attached 24/7 to your partner. There's nothing wrong with that. That personal internal growth stifles once we enter into a relationship, especially as a young inexperienced guy. We don't have the tools in our mental toolbox to navigate both things at the same time, a personal relationship and self-growth. One has to be sacrificed, and often it's ourselves. So, knowing all that, I would say, young dude, you need to be cognizant of that to steer the ship properly. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and not so much all that. That's what I did.
That's a great answer.
Great answer. Yeah. Love it, love it, love it.
Welcome to the Apex Lifestyles Podcast. I'm your host, BobgDMD, and I'm here as always with my co-host,
Dennis V. How you doing, Bob?
Man, we had a killer drop this week, right?
Well, Harold Presley, who is celebrating the 40th anniversary of Villanova's win in 1985 over Georgetown in the national championship. That takes us, today is actually the day of the national championship. Houston playing Florida. I'm going with Florida, but as a Connecticut native yesterday, we had a huge day in women's sports. UConn women won their 12th title. Gino and Paige Becker is just, I was watching yesterday, was contemplating whether or not he's all done. I don't think Gino's going anywhere.
Right? I mean, what a cool episode we had just a couple days ago. We just recorded that last week, right beforehand, so we dropped it just in time. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, so, shout out to the listeners out there. If you have not seen this video, it is a must-see. We learned so much tea from Harold Presley. He grew up in my hometown. He's somebody that I wish to emulate growing up as an inspired basketball player, and there's stories that I never saw. It's a must-see.
Yeah, for sure. He even was hanging with Mario Lemieux, he told us, right, at dinner one night. Right, he walked in to a Super Bowl party, and Mario Lemieux's at the dinner table. So
can't make it up.
Can't make it up. Anyway, so for all the subscribers out there, if you subscribe off of this episode, comment, subscribe down at the bottom, helps us out, and Dennis and I will send you a personalized gift if you do that. Don't forget to hit subscribe, hit the bell, the notification, so that you get notified every time we do an upload. And Dennis, we have a really cool guest today, man. This guy helped inspire my change. What is that? Like 6 years ago, I started this thing, maybe 5 years ago. And it's all because I picked up one of his books because I was experiencing some things in my own life that resonated with that book. And I'd like to take the opportunity now to introduce Ralph from Help for Men, otherwise known as the DSO, Dad Starting Over. And he wrote a landmark book called The Dead Bedroom Fix that I actually picked up and read. Probably, I guess. Ralph, when did you drop that book? When did you release that book?
The first version was in 2017. The second edition, which was a little bit more popular, was in 2020, and then the third edition just last year in 2024.
Yeah, so I picked it up in 2020. So that edition.
Well, thank you.
And I read through it, and I joined your group. I've had some personal coaching from you, and I thought you would be a great guest to have on, talking about reaching your apex. This is one part that a lot of dudes that struggle with, and it's interpersonal relationships, and it's really designed, and I'll speak for you a little bit because I think I know where you're coming from. But your book was written for heterosexual men in long-term monogamous relationships, correct? Right, but that group has now exploded in a lot of ways, and you've gotten people who are in long-term relationships or want to be or getting over, and you have some other books like Divorce Panic, Red Flags, and you wrote one for young boys too, right?
I did, called Real Talk. No bullshit life advice for young men. Yep. That's
right. And my son and my stepson have copies of that.
Oh, good. Excellent. Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course. So welcome to the show, Ralph.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to have you, and we're going to dig into some really cool stuff. Dennis and I usually talk about music, hip hop. We've even had a perfumer on, which was kind of an interesting one. Yeah, so she's the woman who made the signature scent for Tiffany's, and she was on the cover of Forbes magazine. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Very, very sweet lady. And Dennis and I, we're due for a trip down to see Sue.
We got to go see Sue Films very soon. We need a fragrance.
That's right. So you need to get your fragrance. She does a bespoke fragrance thing in New York, so it's pretty cool. You go in there and she'll mix up the concoctions for you, right? So it's pretty cool. But anyway, yeah. So Dennis, you and I have talked extensively about transformation and living at the apex. We're gonna maybe head into some murky waters per se.
Said, well, Bob, as we wrote your book, and this is something that Bob and I spoke about quite a bit, is he made his transformation. And as you said before, he lost a whole person. And what we've seen is Bob has rediscovered himself or discovered himself. And let's jump right in.
Yeah. So let's talk about it, Rob. Let's go back. What inspired you to write The Dead Bedroom Fix and start Help for Men?
Well, it's interesting. About 12 years ago, I went through a nasty divorce, and I won't go into details of that, but it was a pretty traumatizing experience. Never been through anything like that before. My mom and dad were never divorced. I didn't really know much, knew of it, obviously, but in my own personal life, it was pretty new to me. So it was pretty devastating. And one thing I did to, I guess you could say, a form of self-therapy was to write. So I started up a blog and started writing on a bunch of different topics, and very few people read it, as most blogs are not that popular. And it wasn't until, I wrote on like, parenting and the finance thing and even the fitness thing, and nothing. And then I would talk about sex and marriage. Here are my thoughts on that. And that got some attention, to the point where one of my handful of readers said, I really like it when you talk about the sex and marriage thing. You should write a book about it. And so I did. And that was my first foray ever into writing a book about anything. And it didn't do too well until somebody suggested, you should market this book. At the time, this again, 2017. So, wow, 8 years ago now. Facebook advertising was relatively, it was effective at the time for, not much money. You could get a lot of eyeballs on your ad. So I did that, and I don't know what it was, the timing, the ad was just literally a simple picture of the book. So it wasn't like it was, some super creative thing or something, but it took off and sold tens of thousands of copies in no time. And that in turn got a lot of people emailing me directly saying, love your book. Can I ask you some advice? Which led to, somebody said the magic words, it's not fair. You're not really charging for your time talking to people. Have you ever thought about charging for your time? Oh, never thought about that. Started doing that. Now I have a lot of eyeballs in my material, a lot of people emailing me. Let's take advantage of this. Let's start a community to support men. So I started that. More guys helping me with the coaching, and the rest is history. And as of a couple of years ago, we started the brand of Help for Men to be more inclusive. Everything used to be under the name of Dad Starting Over. That was the name of my blog years ago, and I wrote under that name and everything else, social media presence. And we had a lot of guys saying, I'm not a dad. Can I still join in your world? And it's like, yeah, obviously. Well, it wasn't so obvious to a lot of guys. A lot of guys were like, Dad, not me. See ya. And I'm not starting over. I'm not going through a divorce. Can I still come? Yes, you can. So we're like, okay, the name is off-putting to a lot of people. So we started this Help for Men brand. That got us some national press attention. I've been on Forbes on their YouTube channel. I did a half-hour interview with them. I've been on News Nation, which is a national news channel. New York Magazine interviewed me. And, we've done very, very well. I've talked to some of the biggest names, Dr. Robert Glover, you name it. I probably
No More Nipster Nice Guy, right?
That's
a great
right.
book.
He's going to be at our. We have annual conferences. Our 5th annual conference is coming up next month in Charleston, South Carolina. It's already all sold out. It's been sold out for a while. So we already are selling tickets to the 2026 conference in Louisville, Kentucky. Dr. Robert Glover will be hanging out with us for the weekend. I don't know if you know Lauren, the Dadvocate. She's a big social media presence. She's going to be there as well. Adam Nissenson is the betrayal shrink. He's a therapist that helps guys deal with betrayal from infidelity as well as sex addiction. So it's going to be a really cool event. So that's a really succinct, summation of the last so many years.
A decade or so, right?
Yeah,
a little shy of a decade. Let me tell you though, I think part of the reason it resonates is because a lot of people experience things, and there isn't necessarily a platform that is Help for Men. I think there's some stigma that goes along with that. Actually, Dennis and I had you probably know Daryl McDaniels of Run DMC.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we had him in here live.
DMC himself.
DMC himself was live in person. And Dennis, you remember, why don't you kind of take off with that, with his his book and what we talked about and how that whole thing about the stigma and all that.
It's very interesting. I connected to DMC probably 4 years ago through a mutual friend. And, he ended up at the college I work at. Somebody bought his book, was gifted his book, 10 Ways Not to Commit Suicide. And when DMC and I talked for the first time about it, I said, why did you write it? And one of the things he talked about is he grew up in the 80s and men didn't talk. And it is, you were talking about this right before Bob said it. I looked at the picture, and this is all I was thinking about, because I was, in my teens in the 1980s, and we just didn't talk about things. You repressed it, and it just wasn't. And I know myself, I was really sick in high school in the 80s. Therapists came in to talk to me, and I refused, and just the way it was. And for years, a lot of men have repressed it as DMC. You think this guy's at the top of his world, and until the mid 90s and all the fame, whatever, all he wanted to do was kill himself. And it's, little work on himself, and a lot of work on himself, and a lot of things changed, but that's definitely existed. It exists for both men and women, but we're talking about men right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you definitely have built a platform that resonates. It resonated with me. It still does. I still jump in there. I have a lifetime membership, and all that.
Well, thank you.
And I jump in there and I read what other guys are going through. And the interesting thing is now that I've gone and done, we have on our shirts, do the work, right? It's not just about exercise. It's actually more about doing the work, the internal work that you need to do to live your best life. And I watch and I see myself in a lot of those newer guys that come in there, I see all the same thought processes that I went through. And, I can give you a little bit of my story, and then you can maybe go on and talk about some of the people that go through, and seek help through your organization, right? So I was married about 20 years. I was married for 18 with her for 20. We have 2 kids. I'm a dentist, as you know, and she came in to work here a little bit, and I introduced her to one of my patients when she wanted to go and buy a triathlon bike because she wanted to get into triathlon, and he was an Ironman, and apparently he was much better than a 430-pound guy, So she made that choice and made the jump. And that blindsided the living daylights out of me. I didn't know, I came from a similar background like you. There's like no divorce in my family. It never even crossed my mind. And I just was looking for answers. And there was not a lot of answers. I had to go and seek help of a therapist. And I didn't know about you yet or a book. But then I recoupled, and everything was great for the first year or so, right? I had lost some weight, attracted somebody, and everything was great for the first year. But then I got comfortable again, and old habits came back, and hence your title spoke to me because I ended up with those same symptoms, and so I read through it, and the first thing I did was get to the gym, right? And that was a whole thing in of itself. But that's kind of, like you said, the first chapter, right? And a lot of those tenets, then you went down the rabbit hole. And then I also found, the sewer part of the manosphere on the internet. And you definitely are not in that category. You give real advice. And I think that's one thing I want to impart. Some of that red pill stuff is kind of vile. And you definitely don't subscribe to that kind of stuff. But I did want to get into it and, tell us a little bit about the guys that come to your platform and seek out help.
It's you don't like to paint everybody with the same brush, but if I had to categorize the gentlemen that come to us, well, you start to notice patterns after talking to hundreds and hundreds of men for so many years. You're like, okay, I hear the same thing again and again and again. You can start to apply labels, and the label I use for the majority, not all, the majority of our audience and members of the group is anxious guys who have what we call like an anxious form of attachment to their partner. And they tend to be the pursuers, the hanger-on guys, the Mr. Nice guys, the codependent guys. And lo and behold, who do they match up with? The polar opposite, the yin and yang thing. Opposites attract. And
the dismissive avoidant, right? Is who
the avoidant
end
types.
up with.
Yeah. And there's degrees of it. There's some people that are, maybe this isn't the proper terminology, little avoidant. They need their own time. They need their little independence, but for the most part, they're loving, kind, warm people. But they just need a time out every now and then, and they're not the most clingy people in the world, but they're fine. All the way to once that honeymoon stage ends, and they move in and say, "I do," it's over. It's done. They don't, no, don't touch me, don't look at me, don't kiss me, don't do anything with me. No, 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 no. And it leaves those poor, anxious, codependent men feeling even more broken than they already were before. And they're very lost. And then as part of their temperament is that they're always seeking out solutions and answers to try and understand and fix the situation. So I have a book called The Dead Bedroom Fix. So it fits very well for those men. They're sexless marriage. I want to fix this. Lo and behold, here's a book. And that's what brings them into my world. And invariably what we learn from these guys, it's not such a simple thing. It's usually not so simple as just go to the gym, lose some weight, and everything is better. No, No.
Yeah, you have to be able to step into the discomfort,
It's
Yeah,
it's all
100%.
up here. It's okay, what's the origin of all of this? Why did you connect with such a person? Why do you hang on to such a person? Yes, it's interesting. The go to the gym thing. It's a potent anti-anxiety medication, getting better physically, exerting yourself, pushing and pulling heavy things.
Yeah.
Makes you feel more confident in yourself. You're literally healthier. All your health markers are better. The doctor's saying you're doing good. You're going to live so many more years. All of that makes you feel better, and you have a sense of value. And then finally you look across the table at this person who's been rejecting you for year after year, and you say, what am I doing with them again?
Yeah, that's chapter 7.
They leave said relationship. Either she says, get away from me, or he finally wakes up and says, I don't want to do this anymore. But if you don't address the underlying core foundational stuff, you just do it again and do it again and again. We see that all the time, guys.
Yeah, it's interesting you were talking about health and all that, right? One of those things that resonated with me is the first time, now I'm a dentist, right? So I had medical training, all this, right? But the first time I ever heard about testosterone replacement therapy was in your group.
Oh, wow.
Right? And I said,
Okay. Really?
I said, I said, let me kind of look into that. And sure enough, I had 150 nanograms per deciliter when I got
that's pretty
tested.
low. Yeah.
Three times I got tested, and it all came back 150 nanograms per deciliter. And it turns out that I have hemochromatosis, and that will cause low testosterone in a lot of ways. And my lifestyle was not conducive to that. So, but I can tell you when I got on it, it was a life changer. Like it allowed me to recover and work out in a way that was able to continually move forward and progress, which I hadn't had since I was a kid. And then it also, and I don't know if it's from the workouts or if it was because of the getting myself into the normal range or not, my confidence level just skyrocketed. And I started to feel like the ground was under my feet again for the first time in a long time. And there was some depression, and I don't know if the depression was treated from the TRT or if it was from all the other things, but it was just this cascade of getting better and getting better and getting better. And anecdotally, I have a bunch of young kids that work for me, but I can run circles around them now,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty cool.
Well, good for you.
But anyway, and I owe that to, reading your book, in part, right? I had to end up going and do the work, but you were the book was the inspiration for.
Well, that's
for a lot
awesome.
of that.
Good to hear it. Thank you.
So, another thing I wanted to kind of get into, you've helped a lot of people. I think at one point, you were talking on another pod, maybe it was on, Dr. Psych Mom or something. And, you were talking about how you have been able to talk to thousands of people, over the course of you doing this. What have you learned about the percentage of long-term monogamous relationships how many people are in dead bedrooms, and how prevalent is that in society?
Yeah. There is a study, a long-term study that a lot of people cite. First of all, you have to define what do you mean by dead bedroom.
Yeah. Why don't you do that?
Yeah.
That's an interesting take, right?
Because
I think I know the answer, but go ahead.
Yeah, I talked to this guy over here, and he's like, we're averaging twice a month. And as far as sexual frequency with the wife, and as far as I'm concerned, that ain't cutting it. It's just, it's leaving me wanting a lot more. There's a lot of resentment and a lot of frustration. Then you ask the guy next to him, and he's like, twice a month, I would kill for that. That sounds amazing. It's perfect. It's right in my wheelhouse, what I physically want. And versus this guy over here says, if it's not every other day, it's just, no, forget it. So it's all over the place. I've heard some people say that there's like a clinical diagnosis for a sexless marriage is 10 times a year or less. These are all subjective things, semantics, like who cares? But there is a big survey done. I wish I had the stats here in front of me. I don't want to lie, but they asked long-term married folks, how often do you guys get it on? And it was, I don't remember the exact numbers, but by my definition of, that's not very good, all the way to, oh yeah, that's definitely a sexless marriage. I remember the percentage is around 53% fall into the category of what I subjectively think of as not very healthy. So just over half, the slight majority of long-term married couples that were polled in this survey would fall under my category of that ain't good. Again, you ask this guy over here, he may disagree with me, but that's my personal definition. Some big picture questions here. Like, what's going on here?
I was going to say, why is that? Right. I mean, that's the next logical thing is why is it that 50% of marriages ostensibly end up sexless? And then what's the outcome of that? How do we get there? Is like, how did we get there as a society? Like, is that, I mean, you're the expert. So let's let you dig into that.
The more you dig into it, I'm afraid to say, you leave pretty cynical about long-term monogamy in general. It's terrible to say. We have a lot of very conservative, traditional people, like in our group, for example. It tends to skew, for whatever reason, politically. We have a lot of conservative guys in the group, and they come from very traditional, religious-based backgrounds. And if you ask them from day one, as children, the mission has been, relationship-wise, find wife, make babies, stick together from now until the end of time. That's it. And no one really pulled these guys aside to say, that's great. And it's probably optimal for the raising of children. In fact, probably not, most likely is the most optimal template or structure for raising children. Mother, father, stay together, no matter what kind of thing. But no one follows it up with, and by the way, dude, or lady for that matter, the chances of you guys having a sex life between the two of you that you, dude, or A-OK, thumbs up, it's going to take a lot of work. And it's going to take a lot of patience on your part. And by the way, When you guys start getting close to the old empty nest thing, there's this thing called menopause, perimenopause that rears its ugly head. That's going to make things even more difficult. We don't talk about these things. There is this whole, if you go down the avenue of exploring, how else to say, the sexual tendencies in the average heterosexual woman, let's say. We know that, and coming from a dude, a lot of women don't like to hear this, but there are plenty of women with PhDs and other things after their name who say the same thing. And that is, the evidence seems to show that the average gal, when she enters into a long-term monogamous relationship, the libido goes from here down to here.
It's pretty quick.
For the average dude, it's like we go down a little bit because the familiarity and everything else, the novelty wears off, but we're able to kind of maintain the example I often give is dude comes in from a horrible day at work. He's stressed. He doesn't know if he's going to lose his job today, tomorrow, whenever. And he's emoting to his wife about this is awful, this is stressful. And the wife says to him, you want to go upstairs? Probably 9 times out of 10, the man's going to be like, yeah, let's go. That's a testimony to the underlying baseline level of libido in your average dude. Not every guy, but your average dude. Versus your average gal, kid sick, whatever it is, it can take her out of that mindset relatively easily. And there's a book called Come As You Are by a gal by the name of Emily Nagoski, all about female sexuality. Very good book, huge, like big Bible of a book, which is a testimony to the complexity of female sexuality. And so she has a really good segment in there talking about the brakes and the gas or the accelerator when it comes to sexuality. And for some women, dare I say, a lot of them, if not all of them, no, most of them, to be fair, have a lot of brakes. If this happens, no, it's not happening. If this is going on in my life, no, sex is not happening. There's a lot of brakes. Men don't seem to have as many brakes. So when you combine dude who's ready to go if the wind is blowing just right versus woman who has a lot of brakes and a lot of things have to be working in concert and the planets have to be aligned just right. Again, when in long-term monogamy, it's tough to keep that engine going. You got to constantly feed. I'm picturing like the big engines, like in the Titanic, those old steam liners. Shoveling coal into constantly shoveling coal, and when you stop, the whole thing just stops. And we don't tell guys a lot of this. Like this is some work. This is
my dad did not tell me anything.
No,
my dad,
no.
So no.
And what is kind of disturbing, for lack of a better word, to a lot of guys is the early stage when you guys are dating, pre-kids, getting to know each other. You haven't popped the question yet. That is the most erotic, for lack of a better word, highly sexualized, energized stage of the relationship.
Yeah, that's it's that limerence thing, right?
Honeymoon phase, limerence phase, what do you want to call it? And unfortunately, it sets the tone for the man to say, you remember how the first 2-3 years of the relationship, how that was so awesome? Remember what you did then? Just keep doing that and everything should be fine, right? It's like, no. That was sex life on easy mode. Post-marriage, post-kids especially, that's sex life on hard mode. So now we're sitting back going, man, what is it with all these dead bedrooms and stuff? To me, it's like, well, duh. The more you learn about it, that's the default. Yeah. That's how it's supposed to go. Then the one way, and again, another very cynical take on this. One way I look at it is, it's Mother Nature's way of saying, oh, you guys have been together for so many years. You've procreated. You had kids, right? Kids are all healthy. They're weaned from mother. Everything's cool. Good, right? Mom, let him go. Let him go do his thing and find other women to knock up. This is Mother Nature talking. It's not nice. It's not pretty.
Right.
And dude, start looking elsewhere. Let her go. Hence, and we have things like pornography that prey upon this inclination. Sex workers, the world's oldest profession. He's been around for generations. And it's our natural proclivity to just drift apart. Now, what we do once we drift apart, whether it's sleep in separate bedrooms, whether it's just goodnight, honey, and that's the only interaction we have, or have affairs, or whatever it may be, it just seems our natural inclination is just to slowly but surely go apart. And it takes work to pull you back together. Got to have date nights. Somebody's got to watch the kiddo. Aunt so-and-so's got to watch the kid. We got to go away for the weekend together. We have to do lunches frequently, keep in contact with each other on a regular basis, take care of each other independently. Wife, I got the kid. Get out there. Go. Go to your gym. Go to your yoga. Go do your girl thing, whatever it may be. Same thing for me. I'll go do my gym thing, hang out with my boys, whatever it may be. That's tough. So we got the independence, yet we got to stay connected. We got to stay sexy with each other as much as humanly possible because Father Time, doesn't like us to stay sexy for very long. It's telling us to turn down the old sex machine. That's what menopause is all about. It's like, part of your life's over, sister. No, it takes work to keep that going. No wonder it
Yeah.
falls apart for so many people.
Ralph, one of the things I'm hearing is that, obviously obstacles happen in relationships. When obstacles begin to happen, an obstacle doesn't have to be like something went wrong, but they could be the life's natural challenges that come along. Is it safe to say that people don't deal with those challenges? They compartmentalize and just never confront the things that they should be dealing with to have a healthy relationship?
I would say that's a fair assessment from everybody I've talked to.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone that just isn't willing to do the work? Both sides just work connecting with somebody and trying to do the work, because you would say that would be the first place to start if you're in the initial stages of not, really being able to connect anymore. What advice would you give?
You're not able to connect anymore with them. There's a definite distance. There should be a level of comfort and familiarity between the two of you if it's been going on. You've been together for a decade plus, where you should be able to set the BS aside and have a good come to Jesus moment, sit down, talk. Pat the couch next to you and say, "Come over here, let's just talk." Put the phone away. You and I haven't touched each other for 6 months. You and I don't even look at each other. We haven't been on a date for a year and a half. We have whatever it may be. If you can't have that level of a talk, it's hopeless. There's just no hope whatsoever.
Well, you throw in another challenge that I know when we were younger, it didn't exist, but technology, phones, all these different things that are they're very entertaining. Pinterest, TikTok, whatever. People get so wrapped up into that they're avoiding human interaction.
And it is catnip for an anxious individual. If you look at your typical married couple, not always, but usually the most anxious individual, meaning you could clinically diagnose them with a generalized anxiety disorder or something anxiety related, is usually the woman. Not saying that men don't have anxiety, they do, but if there was a race, the women would win the gold medal most of the time. And one of the biggest things you'll hear from a lot of women is, I take on a lot of the emotional labor of the relationship, which really, when you listen to them, it can be defined as, oh, you're just experiencing a great deal of anxiety about all this world that's hitting you. Kid thing is going on. The work thing is, most women work. The house thing, the husband's annoying me thing, and all this other stuff. I'm getting older and yada, yada, yada. There's nothing better for a super anxious person than to somehow tune out and take their attention elsewhere. And that may be in the form of, when you and I were kids back in the 80s, it was the woman sat and watched soap operas, just escaping. But now it's the phone, scroll, scroll, scroll. I don't have to face all of this stuff going on, the anxiety. This makes me feel good temporarily. And next thing you know, hours go by and they're on the TikTok and they're on the YouTube and the Pinterest and everything else. It is not good. It gets in the way of connection between two individuals. And for the man, the pornography thing. I was going to say the man and the alcohol thing. Oh, we know women that put away 2 bottles of wine every single night.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And why? They're feeling anxious and they need to calm down from the day. And alcohol is a pretty potent anti-anxiety drug. It's also pretty addictive to a lot of people. It's not such a good thing, and a lot of health problems with that. We have plenty of men who say, my wife's doing a bottle a night of the old wine and I don't know, kind of worried about her. And all these things. Yeah, these are just very real obstacles to get in the way of two people staying connected. On top of, we don't talk about this, the cultural thing. There are a lot of women who, when you have that sit down talk with them, go, honey, this is the way it is. Two people don't stay romantic once kids come to the picture. And the guy's like, excuse me? What do you mean they don't? No, my parents didn't. My grandparents didn't. You have kids and you do your thing, I do my thing, and that's it. Oh, so I can go fool around with other women? Oh, no. You can't do that.
Yeah. The forced celibacy thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Unilateral enforced celibacy.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about this real quick. This is something that comes up a lot, and I like your take on it, the old bait and switch thing. You were talking about the limerence phase, and then, hey, just going back and do that, whatever you did then, right? And I had to chew long and hard on, your answers to that, other people, that I've listened to on that, and it always, to me, felt like a bait and switch. And I think it's probably nature's way, like you had said. And I don't think it's nefarious per se.
There you go.
But it certainly, while you're in it and you have that anxiousness about it, it feels that way.
Yeah, it's the easiest knee-jerk reaction is this must be a calculated, cold, planned out thing. that this person is doing to hurt me. It's almost as if we're kind of, in a roundabout way, kind of trying to come up with something to cope with the fact that no, it's actually, it can be viewed as an even more nefarious kind of thing, which is, no, this is just Mother Nature doing its thing. That makes it almost feel hopeless. Like, oh,
Yeah, it's true, actually. Now you
this is
think
just
about
a
it that way.
natural progression of a relationship and of human beings in general. I kind of wish it was just a decision on our parts, because maybe we could flip that decision to something nicer. No, it's not how it works. And yeah, for all you guys listening to this or watching this that are like, no, man, the bait and switch is real. I'm sure there are human beings in the world, women out there, who have in fact said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to marry this guy. We're going to have the kid. Once I get him settled down, I'm just going to pull the rug out from under him and say, you and I no more. We're not getting together. I'm sure that exists. But that, I think, is the vast, vast minority of individuals and couples out there. The majority is just, the women are just as surprised by their sudden shift as the man is. That they want to maintain the romantic and the sexy and the connected, but they just don't have it in them anymore. After the marriage, after settling down, after all the stress of life and kids. I keep mentioning kids, and that is not to demonize kids, but from everything I have seen, that is the most potent life change, big left turn in life as far as the romance is concerned, is the introduction of children, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And why don't you talk about the reason that is? I mean, I've gone down the rabbit hole myself, but you're the expert. Let's dig in a little bit. Why do you think kids turns the libido down?
I think a couple of things. One is stress turns the libido down. And find me something any more stressful to your average woman than you're a mother now. Like, the whole weight of the world is on their shoulders. This little human, this social pressure of being Miss Perfect, perfect mom, perfect at everything. She scrolls through the social media we talked about on the phone, and she's looking at all these perfect families on Instagram. Look at them on their perfect vacations. Look at the wife with her perfect little body, and here I am still struggling to lose the 40 pounds from pregnancy. Look at that's just... And then here comes Mr. Man going, you want to get it on? She's like, no, I don't want to get it on. Remember the breaks? There's a lot of breaks there. And combined with, I think there is a Mother Nature. Hey guys, you procreated. And we know that there's biologically, hormonally, some very real things that happen for a woman, for example, who's breastfeeding. She has a new infant. Right away, the hormonal fluctuations are way different than what they used to be. Combined with breastfeeding almost sends a woman into a state that is akin to menopause. So libido, gone. Don't touch me, no. It's Mother Nature's way of saying, if you want to look at it this way, stop running around making more babies, take care of this one. Make sure this one survives. So she's all concentrating on this one. Baby is weaned, no longer breastfeeding. Again, hormonal dials are all down. It's almost as if Mother Nature's way of saying, hey, cool it. Don't even make it any more right now. Let him go do his thing. Let him go find another one. With society, we don't really like that too much. So there's the pressure and shame to keep man over here and keep him attached to the kiddos and deal with the wife who's saying, not now, maybe next year, maybe. And that's when men hear that from their women, like, I had a kid 6 months ago. It's going to take a while, give me another 6 months or so. Gosh. But so generalized, or in general, why are kids such a potent libido killer? Stress, Mother Nature, and two are pretty potent. And I don't think we as men can fully appreciate that.
Yeah, I think sometimes too, we don't fully appreciate the level of right word. We don't necessarily appreciate what a woman's day-to-day activity in her own mind is.
Mm-hmm. No. The overwhelming pressure of everything, motherhood,
right,
everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have a nothing box that we can go into, right? And I think a lot of times the women that have been in my life have a hard time with a nothing.
Yeah. And they need to take more of a page from our book in that regard. The nothing box is a way of just zoning out and coping and just tuning out everything. It's like a little meditation moment. No, I just go sit in my office and do nothing. It's like, what do you mean you sit in your office and do nothing? Yeah, I just enjoy my sit in my office and doing nothing. You're not talking to somebody? No, I'm not talking to somebody. This is just what we do. And while the woman always seems to have something going on and everything's interconnected with each other, it's very difficult for them to reach that state of Zen, if you will.
Yeah. And one of the things that is interesting for me to think about is how a lot of guys think, I'm going to kind of segue into, if you understand that your spouse has all this going on in their head all the time and always kind of making sure that everything's perfect, making sure that we're doing things right. And then guys tend to do this chore play thing. hoping to get, kudos from mom, and I'd like to kind of delve into that dynamic of, modern day man is now doing chore play in order to get kudos from his spouse. But now how does that almost looks like, I don't remember what chapter it's in, but you're like, do it because you're a grown man and the chore needs to be done, right? Not because you want, mommy's approval. And then can we segue from that kind of thought process into why do we have this, like, and I don't want to say it in a bad way, but this incel community of men that now is relegated to the basement playing video games and basically disengaging? Can we kind of go from, because I feel like it's a similar kind of psyche thing that's going on in society.
So you see, draw for me the parallels between
So what I'm saying is, like, you have a bunch of guys that act like children themselves.
I see.
Do you know what I mean? In their relationships, and they're trying to get approval from mom or their spouse. It's not really mom, but they've made spouse into a de facto mom.
Yeah. So, but in those men's defense, the concept of chore play didn't just drop from the sky, and all these men got together and said, what we need to do? We need to do more chores around the house. No, that's been beaten into us. Popular cultures, like, men need to do more. Damn it, they don't do enough of their share of the logistical work around the house. And when you ask, just go to my Dad Starting Over social media accounts, anytime there's a video or something posted about this subject, dead bedrooms in general and men complaining about them, comment after comment, hundreds of them from women saying, perhaps if the guy did more around the house. Meaning, I'm so overwhelmed and stressed. There's the whole emotional labor thing. They see so much of their time taken up by doing things around the house that what I need to do, dude, living with me, is to alleviate some of that stress in my life. And then maybe that will allow some libido to flourish and I will be able to breathe again and feel like a woman again. Because as it is right now, with all the tasks that I'm in charge of, it's just too much. So help, would you, more? And I talked about the typical guy that comes into our group and ingests a lot of my material is Mr. Anxious Guy. He wants to do anything and everything to fix it. So they hear that and go, oh, I heard you loud and clear, wife. And some guys take it to the nth degree and say, you just sit your butt right there, wife, and watch me. And he's Mr. Mom for months on end of doing every single chore around the house, making every meal, almost as if his way of saying, I've eliminated all obstacles. You wanted a little bit of respite from all your stress in your life here. I'm going to eliminate all of it as far as I'm concerned. And what a lot of these guys learn is that it's never quite enough. There's this old term of the goalposts are always moving. So she doesn't want you to quite win the prize. So, honey, I'm doing the laundry. I'm doing the meals. I'm picking up the kids from daycare. I'm doing all this stuff because you say you don't like to do it. You say your back hurts and you need some alone time. And I told you to go hang out with your friends and I took care of all this stuff. And still, we're not any more connected than what we used to be. Well, there is one other thing you haven't done yet. Perhaps, oh, shit, she's right. I haven't done that either. So he goes and does the other thing and the point is that it's never at baseline. The issue isn't the chore. It's just the thing that is like the most easily, I picture like
scapegoated, maybe.
I picture like stuff on a store shelf. The easiest thing to reach for is right there. It's right in her face because she is legitimately stressed out, tired, and sick of doing this. And even though, if you put it all on paper, you may be like, not only is it even, the guy actually has a couple of extra items here on the list, wife. You got these 6 things you do on a daily basis. He does these 9. He's actually doing his fair share here. I mean, to her, it's like, no, my 6 really stressed me out. He can handle his 9 just fine. In fact, I see him looking perfectly fine and stress-free. The fact that he's stress-free actually makes me more stressed. So maybe if we knocked my list down to 2 instead of 6 items, maybe then we'll even out, and it never works. And, but to those poor guys, you can see why. It's been hammered into them over and over again. Chores, 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 do more, do more. Now, with that being said, there are some guys out there that do nothing. I have plenty of women who have informed me of this. The guy comes home after work, just like she does, puts his feet up and says, that's it. I don't have to do anything else. This is how I was raised as a kid. Guys don't do anything. You need to do your part, guys. You're an adult, as I say in the book. You see a bed that needs to get made, you just make it real quick. It's not that difficult. You got laundry, it's in the hamper, throw it in the washing machine. It ain't that difficult. Toilet looks nasty, scrub it. Who cares? These are things that take like minutes out of your life. It's not a big deal. But do not go to wife then and say, laundry. Now you want to, biggest turnoff there is, because you're going to, like you said in the book, you're going to mommy for your reward. Look what I did, mommy. Aren't I a good boy? And anytime you have that dynamic of you being the underling, if you will, the subservient one, going to the boss or mommy figure and saying, look what I did, it's not conducive to generating a sexual atmosphere between a couple.
Where do you create the balance then? Because you have whether it's the man or the woman, there's one side is feeling really overwhelmed, and then there's somebody else that's trying to pick up the slack. And how do you get those individuals to kind of meet in the middle and realize that there has to be some compromise here?
In those examples I give, where it seems like no matter what the man does, the wife is always overwhelmed, and she always claims that the emotional load, mental load, whatever they want to call it. Oftentimes, and I'm no expert on this, but I think any therapist would agree, oftentimes that is a matter of, wife, I think you got some problems with the old anxiety, and I think it's getting in the way of you functioning on a healthy day-to-day basis. And any therapist would then follow that up with, as evidenced by the fact that you and hubby aren't really having any kind of romantic relationship anymore. By the way, wife, that's not healthy, and you can't continue doing that. He ain't going to be your husband for much longer. This isn't a good dynamic you got going on here. Perhaps we should work on said anxiety. What do you say? Perhaps we need more of some self-care thing. Maybe we should eliminate some things that are stressing you out. Maybe you and the kids don't need to do 12 events every single week. Perhaps you don't need to volunteer for 5 things every PTO meeting. Wife, you're still a good mother if you don't do that, believe it or not. All the way to, we've tried all these things, perhaps some pharmaceutical help. Don't know. All kinds of things. That's what I've seen as the case often with a lot of these folks. It's like one or both need some help. And yeah, go ahead.
No, you're going. The interesting one that both you and Bob brought up is the guy. How do you convince that guy that is perfectly content and happy doing nothing? Playing video games all day, outdate ourselves once again. All in the family, you pull in the house and you basically expect everything to be done for you. That's a big shift.
Oh yeah. For these guys, we're going back to a much bigger picture issue, which is marriage ain't for everybody, guys. And to think that it's like the default template for everyone, and you just need to kind of figure out how to shoehorn your way in there and make it work. Gosh darn it. That seems to be the predominant thought for a lot of people. You got a guy who's running around screwing every woman in town, and he's been in and out of jail, and he can't hold down a job and everything. He's got a lot of people going, you know what you need to do is you need to get you a woman and settle. And the guy hears that a few million times. He's like, all right, maybe I do need to get a woman to settle down. And the woman's like, are you going to marry me or what? Okay, yeah. Everyone's pressuring me. And all hell breaks loose. Just chaos. And then, years down the line, the woman's like, this guy didn't do shit around the house. He's not helping with anything. He doesn't pick up the kids. He's not parenting. Who'd you marry? I married a guy who sat on his butt and played video games and has been out of jail 3 times. And what made you think he was husband material? I flip the genders. I often are talking to the guys that are like telling me all these horrible stories of this woman who's just got obviously a lot of problems stemming from her childhood and on. She's had her 5th affair and all this other crazy stuff. And I'm like, dude, what is it about this woman? Out of millions of potential women for you, you said, that's the one. That's wife right there. And he says, basically, she liked me.
She liked me, yeah.
She didn't run away.
Right.
And it's just what you do, man. You fall in love and you get married. That's the entire thought process. They put it 2-3 kids later. Again, all hell breaks loose. And I'm like, what made you think this woman was wired for this? Not everybody is wired for this. And I think that's okay, frankly. And so if you're a guy who's like, even after marrying and doing all this stuff and having a couple of kids, you look around and go, you know what, the best thing for me to do right now is just to sit here while my wife's pulling her hair out, trying to run everything. I'm just going to sit here and play some Call of Duty for the next 4 hours. Dude, hello? It's, I don't understand that mindset personally. It's a very childish one, let's be honest. He's at a stage of development, emotional development, it could be argued, that is not conducive to being a father and a husband. That's okay for him, but not so okay for the rest of the family.
It's very true. It's very, very true. That this subject is fraught with landmines and all sorts of different things. We'll try to keep it as above board as we can. But what would you say to a guy if you could doing a synopsis of your book, The Dead Bedroom Fix? What would somebody's come to you for the first time, right, and saying, "Hey, I'm experiencing this. I'm having a lot of negative feelings about it." How do you advise them What's the first thing? Like, if you were to say, this is the main message of this book, can you summarize that in like maybe a paragraph?
I would say the book is aimed at, if you are an anxious guy, you will relate a great deal to the book, because what it does is the title could be something like A Man's Guide for Building a Relationship That is More Conducive and More Likely to Generate Healthy Sexuality Between the Couple. It would seem that a lot of men that are anxious do the flip, which is create a very needy, anxious-based dynamic between he and the wife that is not conducive to sexuality at all. We've already made the case that it's more difficult just by virtue of saying I do, and especially after having kids. So pile on top of that Mr. Needy guy who's got a lot of anxiety issues and he's preoccupied and reaching out. Combine that with a very avoidant woman who's like, can you just leave me alone for once, please, and let me have my peace and quiet. Combine that with a woman who says, after kids, the sex life thing's done, dude. These are all very big obstacles in the way of a healthy sex life. So what I have put forth in the Dead Bedroom Fix book is a blueprint, if you will, of, by my estimation, here's the best chance. Do these things. That's your best chance as a healthy dude for having a healthy relationship with a woman. It's not guaranteed, but that's your best chance.
Could you give the listener like a bulleted, 5 or 10 big ones, that of activities or behaviors that will help kind of set the tone?
We talked about the gym thing before.
Yep.
Which doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to a gym, lift, push, pull heavy things, grunt, and all those. Some guys are like really turned off by like, that ain't me, dude. It's like, understand, but you need to exert yourself. Your body is basically protesting when you're like, I sit at this desk all damn day, it seems, and I don't feel very good if I do that day after day, and I don't go and exert myself. My body's like, you're not meant to be sitting down all day, dude. Go out and do something. That helps you mentally. It helps you physically. So that's a big step that, unfortunately, a lot of men are just completely ignoring it, especially after they have kids and everything else. Who has time for that, they tell themselves. Well, you better have time for that. And the other big thing would be this runs, again, counterintuitive to what a lot of men think. A lot of men feel that now that I'm a husband and father, it behooves me to spend as much time as humanly possible with the family unit. So that means hobbies? Who has time for that shit anymore? Friends? Sorry, Joe, can't hang out anymore. I need to spend as much time with the wife. We have to stay in connection with each other. Otherwise, this is a very anxious take. Otherwise, that connection easily dissipates and I'm going to lose her. Or it further decreases my chances of being intimate with her if I'm not stuck to her 24/7. And I got to be with the kids. I got to coach every single team. I got to do all these other things. We lose sight of a very important thing that's important for our mental health, as well as the health of the relationship, and that is your independence as an
sense of self.
Sense of self, right? You said it. It has been hammered. The opposite has been hammered into us so much. Just to say that out loud to a lot of people, they go, I don't know, dude. It's like, really? Just the act of being a more independent creature makes them go. It's like, why? Well, that's the first step towards divorce. Not for a healthy relationship, it's not. For a healthy relationship, it's the first step to being a healthy individual, which means a healthy relationship. Again, you should be in the type of relationship where you both say, go, beat it. I got it. It's fine. I got the kids. I got the house. Don't worry about it. Go do your thing, dude. Or gal, whatever it is. But that's really tough for an insecure guy. I mean, I got a lot of women that reach out to me to say, I would love to go to yoga and do all these things, but anytime I tiptoe in that direction, my man starts throwing a fit saying, don't leave me with the kids. I can't handle the kids by myself. And besides, when you go out, you're just going to cheat on me. Every woman cheats. And I was like, they're a very anxious individual. That's not good. Very insecure about themselves and about the relationship. So you got to work on that. And there is an overall theme to the mating game, if you want to call that, between a man and woman. That is very pervasive, and it's not necessarily said outright, but it's implied by a lot of marriage and relationship advice out there, which is, that early relationship stuff you did at the beginning to make you a more attractive mate, the thing that attracted them to you, that got them to stay, all that. You got to keep up some of that stuff. You can't keep it up 100%. Time, all that stuff, yeah. But you have to have some concerted effort towards maintaining some of that if you want to maintain some of that early relationship sexuality, for example. You got to keep doing some of that stuff. Again, but some people are like, yeah, right. The more you veer in that direction, though, the less comfortable the relationship comes and the more apt you are to break it. Again,
There's
You're
some
right.
drama that goes with that, right? And I think you talk
Exactly.
about that in the book.
Yeah, there's a new analogy that I've been working on in a few different videos. It's like I picture like a house, and it's filled. It has a front door and a back door, and it's filled with like all this sexual erotic energy at the early stage of the relationship. And then in comes comfort, stability, security, familiarity, kids, all that stuff, and it pushes the sexuality out the back door. And if you're not careful, the house is filled with nothing but that, and the sexuality is out in the backyard. It's just gone. It's this constant back and forth dance. No, we got to bring some of that back in here. Yeah, but we have the kid thing next week. Yep, but we got to keep it. It's this back and forth, which for some of us that don't have really good relationship, what's the word I'm looking for? Models for relationship. We had very unhealthy parents, very unhealthy grandparents, very dysfunctional families. We didn't see that at play. We never saw them kissing and hugging in the kitchen. We never heard our parents say, Grandma's going to watch you. Mom and Dad are going on a date night, or we're going away for the weekend to Aruba or something, just the two of us. You guys have fun. We'll send you pictures. I don't know. That was foreign to us. And so now here's me and others saying, no, man, it's that balancing act, that seesaw. It's back and forth, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that. My wife says we can't do that. My wife says she can't stay away from the kids for more than 10 hours, or she goes nuts. It's a two-way street, man. It takes two to tango. You both have to be on the same mission of, it's important to maintain us as much as humanly possible. My wife and I do at least 2 date nights a week. Now, we are fortunate enough to say we have Nikki, the nanny, who is able to. She's not a live-in or anything, but we can call her up and say, "Are you available Friday, 8 p.m. by any chance?" "Yes, I am." "Cool." We go out for a couple hours. That's a date. It's not even a given, like, are we gonna? It's just, when are we going to do date nights? Culturally, That's what we've built between the two of us. That's hugely important. And that's
It's
just
very
one
important,
aspect.
right?
Yeah.
Right. It's very important. It allows you to kind of reconnect as a couple and without the stress of home life and all that normal routine, right? A couple of things that striking to me is that when you start to do those things that you were able to attract your partner with, that sometime in the beginning, and then you get into that comfort zone and those things lack. Once you go back to doing some of that early stuff, that creates this like competition anxiety in a way.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's the right
It can.
word,
It can.
but
yeah.
but that seems to be, you got to be okay with feeling a little bit of drama around that, because, and I'm not saying you're overtly like trying to go
Manipulate.
and manipulate or take on other people. But if you become the best version or most attractive version of yourself, then that can sometimes fire off a message to your partner that, hey, I got someone here that's worth looking at.
In general, anytime there's a deviation from standard behavior, the other person's going to go, "What's going on?" Whatever it may be. So to have a guy who, "I'm going to go to the gym and lose 100 pounds, gosh darn it." A lot of guys are assuming or hoping that their spouse will be like, "That's my man. I'm so proud of him. You got it. I'll help you make your meals, your special meals. And how often are you going to go to the gym or exercise with your trainer? I'll put it on the calendar. I'll make sure." They assume or hope that their spouse will be their biggest cheerleader. And often their spouse is their biggest saboteur. They're the ones that are like, "I made your favorite cake. Honey, why are you leaving us and going to the gym? You already went 2 times this week. Do you hate us? Are you going to leave me?" And shame, shame, shame. Eat this, eat this. It's not a reflection of your work is invalid or evil or bad, or it's not conducive to a healthy relationship. It's a reflection of her insecurity. Because if she was a secure individual about you, she would be the first person to high five you, to say, "Go do it, dude. I'm proud of you." And tell all their friends, "Look at my husband here. Isn't he looking better? I'm so proud of him. He's getting so much healthier and better." That seems to be the minority, at least in fairness, in the people that come to my material. So it's understandable, but it can go too far fast into that insecure territory. A lot of shaming. Shaming tends to be the de facto method of choice to get men to stop doing a lot of things in relation to, a lot of things, period. But especially in the relationship game, in the sexuality game, men are used to it. We've been shamed for a lot of things when it comes to our sexuality. And if we see something that's veering towards, he's trying to be a more sexy, overall more attractive version of himself, better start shaming it. So eventually you just get to the point where you're like, yeah, you see this coming, you just smile it off. Because why? You're not doing anything wrong. And that's the thing I hammer into a lot of guys. You're not doing anything wrong. You're trying to be healthy. You're trying to look better. You're trying to be a better husband. You're trying to do things to cultivate a more healthy relationship with your wife. You evil monster. How could you?
Yeah, right.
Stop making people try to make you feel shame over all of this.
Yeah. One of the things one thing I want to kind of wrap up with, in times past, men would meet after work, right? And they'd go and grab a beer after work and hang out with guys. Now I know Dennis and we have our guy time quite often because we're working on this side project as much as we are. And I cherish those times to be able to talk to you, Dennis, about that, and what you've done with Brofest is, remarkable. And I think that we need to start bringing some of that back. I think that men having connection with other men is a really, really incredible thing. Some of the best conversations that I've ever had or with other guys that a lot of people think men are not deep. We're just talking about sports and nonsense. Right. And yeah, there is some of that. Right. And that's kind of fun. But when you get close to other guys, that's when, you can actually be vulnerable with each other, because it's safe to do so, and that's where a lot of stuff you can work out a lot of stuff. And I don't know, can you speak to some of that? Why you think that might be important? Why you started Brofest?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it's important though. I say with like-minded men that are, ideally, let me back up. If you're going to sit down at a table with guys and you're like, this is going to be some deep conversation. I'm going to talk about some issues I'm working on with the wife and at home and everything else. You want to make sure you're with like-minded individuals, because there's a lot of dudes out there that will just sip their beer and be like, oh, okay. I don't know. How about them Bears? They don't know what else to say beyond that. They're not comfortable doing so. So make sure you're with the right tribe of dudes that are in the same state of mind, which you two obviously are on the same page on a lot of stuff. Probably you're on the same vibe, same wavelength. But yeah, it's everything. Working with other men, there is something biologically almost that happens when you make that connection with other dudes and you have that camaraderie and that patting each other on the back and yes, opening up and being vulnerable and everything else. It energizes you and it makes you feel like a more complete human being. We've had guys that have left our events saying, I feel like I want to just run through a brick wall. I'm just ready to tackle the earth or tackle all my problems because I heard this guy gave a presentation. That guy had a really good connection with this dude. We exchanged numbers. We're going to meet next week and go fishing. And this is great. And it's sad that that's such a unique, unusual thing for so many men, because we're just so stuck in dad mode and go to work mode. And by the time you're done with your day, it's 9:45 in the evening, and all you just want to do is sit down and relax and just watch a couple of shows and pass out. You do that 7 days a week, and 20 years goes by fast.
For sure. The days are long, but the years are short.
Yeah, exactly. And then you take these guys, that's the template for the average dude out there. And you take these guys and say, we're going to have an event and get us all together. And they just leave so just energized and wide-eyed, like, this is amazing. So it'd be great if we could do that on a regular basis. And that's what life was for a lot of dudes for many years. And then they even made formalized fraternal organizations, to facilitate this. All these lodges and everything else that guys got together and shoot the shit and drink beer and talk things, whatever it was. And then they would network together and help each other out professionally and career-wise. And that's kind of fall by the wayside, unfortunately. So our group and groups like ours are bringing that back in a structured way. And we have guys that get together in a more unstructured meetup. Hey, I'm going to be in Indianapolis. Anybody live there? And they get together and take some pictures and send it to the rest of the group saying, hey, I met with so-and-so. And that's great. I love to see those. But our next Brofest is going to be March 27 and 28th of 2026 in Louisville, Kentucky. And so it's going to be a good weekend. Dr. Robert Glover, Lauren the Dadvocate's going to be there, Adam Nissenson, myself, all the rest of the Help for Men team. And guys, if you're interested in joining us, brofest2026.com. Check it out.
Yeah, definitely check that out. I got to get myself over to one sometime soon too. Dennis and I are doing a bunch of road trips, doing some book tours, things like that.
We'll come over to the land of bourbon.
Yeah, right. That'd be very cool. I'm going to end it on one kind of thought. Talk about and it kind of ties into the men hanging out with men. Talk about how scarcity in a long-term scarcity of yourself, right? Not being available all the time in a long-term monogamous relationship. How does that play into all of this? Right.
Well, I think
it's huge.
Yeah. What we talked about earlier with the independence thing, it's not necessarily so much of a calculated, manipulative, I'm not going to answer her text messages. I'm going to be invisible. She's going to be worried about me whether I'm alive or not. That's where men take it too far. I've had guys that read my material and then say, so the other day I left, my wife said, where are you going? And all I said was out. And then I didn't reply to her for the next 8 hours. And she threw a big hissy fit. What did I do wrong? No one ever said, like, disappear. And, you're a father, you're a husband. You don't just take off, for goodness sakes. I'm saying you don't necessarily need to be attached 24/7 to your partner. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, absence makes the heart grow fonder is a common statement. We all know this. What's the other one that's related to that? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. There's another one I'm always forgetting. But the common phrases that all point to the same thing. As you spend time apart, there seems to be some mechanism at play that says you start longing for each other more so than if you are glued to each other 24/7. This is great. I was going to say on occasion, but when you're married to them, you probably see them every day. But you don't necessarily have to. The guy's weekend away. The girl's weekend away. I'm going on a business trip. I'm going to the gym. I'm going to my running club. I don't know, whatever it is. But it seems counterintuitive, especially today in our more interconnected society and the way marriage has been framed these days, that to do otherwise is conducive to an unhealthy disconnect when in fact it's just the opposite. That's really tough for a lot of people to swallow, is that scarcity, for lack of a better word, the distance can be a healthy thing, and it often is. And it is one of many steps towards reigniting some of that early relationship stuff that you just did naturally without even thinking about it in the honeymoon phase, that limerence phase as it's called.
Yeah. Dennis, I think it's time for your question, man.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
I actually wrote a book about it. Yeah, I had so many guys go, where was this stuff when I was young? And it's like, you hear that enough, and I can't get that dead bedroom fixed to a 14-year-old. He's going to be like, what is this? But I wrote the Real Talk book all about that. But I would say, it sounds like I'm in a way kind of pushing back or punching back at the ex, and that's not my intent at all. It's more of Ralphie, as they used to call me when I was young. Ralphie, you don't need to jump into a relationship immediately, son. It's okay to be a bachelor and be single and kind of discover yourself, learn about yourself. That doesn't mean run around and screw every woman you meet and all that stuff. No, it just means get to know yourself better, learn about yourself, go to the school, travel, do all these things. And when you do find a good one to devote yourself to, that doesn't mean throw yourself 1,000% into it and forget your friends and forget this and forget, no, all that other stuff is still important too. So what am I getting at? I guess if I had to encapsulate all that, would be to stress the importance of independence. But again, you can be too independent. You can become avoidant. You can be like, no, stay away from me. I don't want you. But that's not my personality. My personality tends to be more on the anxious side. So I'm speaking to an anxious young version of myself. So that advice goes to your more anxious guys. Interestingly, when we look at your anxious and avoidance, most avoidance tend to be men. Men tend to be the ones that are like, I don't feel like talking about that right now. We don't need to always talk about the drama in the relationship. And please, can we just have a day of peace? That's a typical dude thing. But that wasn't me. It's not me. So young anxious me, it's all right, dude. Find yourself. The whole world doesn't revolve around find relationship, find woman, settle down. It's okay to explore the bachelor life a little bit. It's okay to find out really who you are. I don't necessarily know if within a relationship that is the best structure for doing so. Some people argue like, no, that's exactly what a relationship is for. You both grow together as a couple. Well, for a person like myself and a lot of the guys I talk to, not necessarily. That personal internal growth stifles once we enter into a relationship, especially as a young, inexperienced guy. We don't have the tools in our mental toolbox to navigate both things at the same time, a personal relationship and self-growth. One has to be sacrificed, and often it's ourselves. So, knowing all that, I would say, young dude, you need to be cognizant of that to steer the ship properly. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and not so much all that. That's what I did.
That's a great answer.
Great answer.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Ralph, thank you so much. I'd love for you to give a litany of how people can get in touch with you, give a litany of your publications. And
Sure.
way I can list them all in the show notes, and people can click away and order and join and do all those things.
Very good. Helpformen.com is our main website organization. Helpformen.com. You can find all my books, articles, got a lot of videos posted on there. I still put a lot of content out there on a daily basis under the brand name of Dad Starting Over. And we're hoping for other content creators to jump on board and help grow Help for Men. We do have incentivize people that if you want to help grow Help for Men, we incentivize by giving you a kickback from everybody that joins us, and they pay a membership fee. We do have our private portion of our website of our organization called the Brotherhood. It's a support community for men. We have very active discussion forums, as you know. We have very active live Zoom meetings, anywhere from 6 to 8 of them every single week, an hour plus each. And then we record all of those, so you have like a catalog of audio to listen to, over 1,200 hours of those, by the way. And then we have all my books, if you're a member, at no extra cost in PDF and audiobook format. We get together in person. We have mentorship or coaching, if you want to call it that. And you have one price for the general public and then a much lower price for members. And then our get-togethers that we talked about, BroFest and other things. And for all of that I talked about, $27 a month to join that community. If you're a veteran, I believe it comes to around $16 a month. Pretty cheap. It's a pretty big nut to cover on a monthly basis to run all these things. Otherwise, I would love to do it for free. If somebody can tell me how to do that for free, I would love to know. But unfortunately, we have to charge something to keep all this going. And we're trying to keep the cost as low as humanly possible. I've had some guys that run online memberships for a variety of different disciplines, and they all say I need to add another digit to that monthly fee. I'm like, no, I want to help as many guys as we can and grow this as much as we can. There are a lot of guys that aren't able to spend a lot of bucks on something like that, but I want them to have a community that they can go to 24/7, 365, log into some live meetings, talk to me one-on-one, whatever it is. So that is what we call the Brotherhood. You can learn more at helpformen.com. Go to Brotherhood in the menu, or just go right to helpformen.com/join. Look for Dad Starting Over and all the social media channels, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, all those. I'm all over the place. You'll see my beautiful bald head yapping away.
Yeah. Well, we got 3 bald guys here today.
That's right. It's too much sexy for one podcast. Too much.
Meeting of the Chrome, right?
Yeah.
So
the 3 toes, we could call it.
There you go. That's awesome. So, such a good topic, and we could have gone down the rabbit hole for hours. At least this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. You've been, a virtual mentor to me over the years, and so thank you for that. Thank you for helping inspire me to make some significant changes in my life. Hopefully, this recording, this podcast, this show will inspire some others to make some positive changes in their life too.
I hope so. Thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words. It means a lot to me. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, very welcome. Well deserved. Dennis, I'll let you wrap up.
All the great things that you're doing for everyone. I mean, this is like you're looking out for people that provide amazing advice. Let it be good. There's nothing new or nothing about this. You're doing a great job there. Bob, it's going.